Ladies and gentlemen, why is the Middle East such a problematic area? This is the question which we have to understand before we try to solve any problem in the Middle East. Because just like somebody who is ill, before he says some problem, the first thing which he goes to the doctor tries to identify or to analyze and to know what the man suffers from. If he has fever, it could be for a tumor which he has in his brains, but it could be a wound which he has in his foot. So treating the fever is by treating the problem. Means he has to understand the problem, what the problem is. The same thing when it comes to area, when you come to area which is inflicted by all kinds of wars and disputes, bloodshed, as the Middle East is, you have to understand why it happens before you try to solve the problems. Because if you don't really understand what the problem comes from, how can you even try to approach it? So what we'll try to do today, it's not what happens in the Middle East, because this we see in the media day and night, too bloody. The question is, why? The Middle East, from Morocco and Algeria in the west, let's start with the maps. All the way from Morocco and Algeria in the west, here, all the way to the east, to Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen here, Iraq, Syria, Turkey with the Kurds, Egypt domestically, Libya, big time. What happened there since the beginning of 2011, what was called formerly the Arab Spring. In Sudan, there was a war for 60 years. 2 million people got killed in Sudan. Who heard about this? Who knew about this? Okay, so wherever you go in the Middle East, almost wherever you go, you see wars, you see this, you see bloodshed, and definitely the question is there some kind of a common denominator which combines all these countries in one problem, or every country is a separate problem without any connection to other countries? What I would like to show you a theory which actually gives the answer to the question, why is the Middle East such a problematic area? Of course, I don't have any rights on wisdom. There are other approaches, I know, especially in academic institutions. Okay, everyone is entitled to his beliefs and thoughts and theories. I would like to present a theory which, in my view, is the only one which explains the situation, and there are other theories as well. If we look at the Middle East from high and above, the real map is this. Means this is the picture. If you take a ride with any satellite or something which goes very high, this is what you're going to see. This is Morocco here, here is Algeria, this is Tunisia, this is Libya, Egypt, this is the Nile, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, the Emirates, Iraq is here, Syria is here, Lebanon is here, Israel is here, this is Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Okay, this is the Middle East. Immediately when you look at this picture, which is actually a photo, you see that the biggest part of this picture is a desert, the Sahara Desert, which starts here in Morocco on the seashore of the Atlantic Ocean. Boca Raton is like here, more or less, beyond the Atlantic. Yeah? And so between Morocco in the west, all the way to the east to Oman, beyond Saudi Arabia. The Red Sea, which is here, doesn't make any difference in climate on its seashores. And the desert reaches the water on one side and continues from the other side. So we can consider both sides of the Red Sea on the west and the east as actually one desert. And this is what a jumbo needs 6 hours to go from the west to the east, because it's some 6,000 kilometers. The way from Tel Aviv to New York takes 10 hours. And this is 6 hours. This is how big this desert is, just to give you the idea. The width is 3 hours, means some 3,000 kilometers. Okay, it's a big desert. And if you go there, you can actually, this is one scenery from there, another magnificent place. Yet, try to live in such a place. It is very hard because there is no water. After all, this is a big desert. So, if any human being wants to live in such an environment, he needs to live near a source of water. Otherwise, it will be dried up within hours and die. And therefore, you have to find a spring, or dig a well, or find some ditch which somehow there's water, because some rain which was there once. And you have to defend your source of water, because other groups of people who live in the same desert, when their source of water is dried up, they start looking for another source of water, and here comes the struggle over the water. Because unfortunately, the desert has, Mother Nature is rather stingy about water when it comes to desert. This is why it is a desert. And in order to defend your source of water, you cannot live as individual, because the one man, the lonely man, is weak, while the group is strong. You must live as a group, because in order to defend your source of water. And the most consolidated group, the most powerful group, is the family, the father and the sons, because they are committed to each other, because they are brothers. And after a generation, you talk about the cousins, second generation. And after another generation is the second cousins, and the third cousins. And what do we get? Hamula in Arabic. You can talk about the extended family, you can talk about the clan, you can talk about the tribe, depends on how many generations it remains together. So I would say extended family, you talk about 3 or 4 generations. You do 5 to 6, 7 generations, you can talk about the clan. And if you count 10 generations, it's a big group, you can already talk about tribe. But these are all differences in terminology, while the essence remains the same. People are related. You know, they are all descendants of one man, which usually the whole group is named on his name. And they have rules in this group. The most important rule is loyalty, because such a group cannot allow any case of treason, because it has to survive against the other groups. And if somebody leaks all kinds of secrets, what we have, what weapons we have, what all kinds of surprises we are preparing to anyone who will try to take our water, if he leaks the information, actually he betrays the tribe, and his punishment will usually be what they call in Arabic tashmis. Tashmis means to send him to the shams, to the shemesh, to the sun, and the sun will kill him in 1 or 2 hours. You don't have to kill him, just send him out to the sand, and immediately the vultures will come and start waiting until he falls, or the foxen or the other beasts will go around the desert. So loyalty is the main rule in these societies. They have leadership, and the leadership usually is not somebody who takes the whole thing by force. It's a legitimate leadership, and it's real leadership. It's not rulership, it's leadership. When, let's say, the former leader dies, all the important men, the heads of the families, gather and they look at one, and he knows that he is now the leader. They don't have to say it. They just look at him, and they always choose the one whom they trust, the one who knows how to talk to people, how to convince people, how to negotiate things. He carries the moral code of the tribe on his heart, and people trust him that he will know how to deal with every problem in the tribe. He means the leader is a real leader. He doesn't take care of himself or his own family. He takes care of everybody. If there is a shortage of food, he will be the last one to eat. He will eat after everybody else ate. If there is a shortage of water, he will be the last one to drink, because he has responsibility on everyone. And this is the name of the game, to be responsible. Other rules of tribes which we know in the Middle East are well known. If somebody brings shame on the family, especially if it's a young lady who allows herself too much with boys, she brings shame on the family. What will be her standard punishment? As they say in Arabic, rasl al-ar. Rasl al-ar in Arabic means washing the shame. How do they wash the shame? With her blood, which will burst from her neck when she will be slaughtered because of the shame which she inflicted on the family. Okay? Now, this punishment of what we call honor killing is against Islam, because according to the Islam, if a lady goes astray, you need 4 witnesses, men, adults, people who pray, people who are sane, who saw her together without any cover with a man, without a blanket. Okay, they saw everything. And they have to come to a court with a judge and to testify and to be questioned and interrogated. And only after this procedure, which is compulsory according to Islam, you can punish the lady. Okay? So, whenever we hear about a father who slaughters his daughter or a brother who slaughters his sister, did 4 men came, grown-ups, saying, people who pray, by the way, another condition, was there a judge? Was there testimonies? Forget it. There were rumors, no more. Means it is against Islam, because the procedure is compulsory in Islam. You cannot go around. Means that what works here is not the Islamic rule, but the tribal rule. Means the traditions of the tribe, which were way before Islam came to the world, only 14 centuries ago. Because the rules of the tribes were crystallized already, who knows how many, hundreds of thousands of years ago, since people tried to live in this environment. It means the tribal culture is way much more rooted in the culture of the Middle East than Islam. Islam is fairly young, only 14 centuries, let alone the modern state, which definitely allows a, let's say, 24-year-old girl to do whatever she likes, with whoever she likes, as long as it's not by force. This is a modern state. Freedoms, okay? Yet, these freedoms are unheard of in these kind of societies, because the state is very young, some dozens of years, depends what you talk about. Algeria was established in 1962. 1960 means some 60 years ago. Okay? So very young culture of the modern state, which failed so far to change the tribal culture, which is much more deeply rooted in the societies of this region. So, both Islam and the modern state, which do not allow you slaughter your daughter only because there are all kinds of rumors about her, definitely fail. Because what we hear today is the tribal culture, which is much more powerful and much more meaningful in the eyes of these people. Another thing which is connected to this issue is the blood revenge. If another group, let's say somebody from there, killed one of us, what will be now? Ideally, if we know who killed him, we'll catch him, the killer, and we'll kill him. Why? Because he killed one of us. But what if he ran away? Or we don't really know who really killed one from us? What will we do? Now we have the blood revenge. We will kill one of the killer's relatives from his khams. Khams in Arabic means 5. We'll go 5 generations up, means to his grandfather's grandfather's father, and all the descendants of his grandfather's grandfather's father are candidates to be killed. Even if it's a 2-year-old toddler who doesn't know his right from his left. Why? Because he's a male, and it's okay to kill him as a revenge for the fighter which was killed from us. This is totally against Islam and against, of course, any modern state. Because according to both systems, the religious system and the civil system of the modern system, the only logic is to catch the killer, to take him to court, to prove that he killed, and maybe there you can kill him as a punishment. You cannot kill his brother, nor his sister, or his father, or his son. What did they do to you? Nothing. Okay? But in the tribal code, you can punish his first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, fourth and fifth cousins. It could be some hundreds of people who become candidates to be killed. If, everybody marries 4 wives and every wife has a kid every year, if you calculate how many people could be candidates, 5 generations could be a very big group of people. This is, again, against Islam and against the state rule. And this actually proves also that the tribal culture is much more powerful, rooted in the culture of the Middle East. But there are, I would say, positive aspects of tribalism, especially when it comes to support. Because the more you are loyal to the tribe, the more you are conformist with the tribe's ideas and values, the more you will be supported once you have a problem. Let's say if you break a leg and you have to lie in bed for 3 months with your leg tied up, because this is how the doctors tied you, everybody will come. One will come to run your business so you don't go bankrupt. Another one will come in the morning to take your children to school. Another one will come afternoon to bring them back from school. Another one, you will go to your refrigerator to make sure that you have food there because your wife is too busy to treat you. So he will go to the marketplace and bring some food home. And his wife will cook, because men do not cook in these societies. And everybody will come to make sure that everything is okay in your family and nobody has to tell anyone anything. Everybody comes because of the responsibility to you, because you are one of us. Okay? Just compare it to somebody, let's say in New York, who dies at home. Who knows about this? Until the stench will come to the other neighbors, nobody will know that he is not alive anymore. Okay? This is totally different kind of society where people are responsible for each other. People open eyes all the time to see what others do, what others need, and to support their tribesmen if they need. Okay? Now, I'm not sure which society is better, and I'm really not giving any evaluation. I'm talking about facts. Everybody can assess whether it fits his expectations or not. Okay? But this is kind of how it is to live in a group which everybody knows all the time what happens with his fellow members of the group, and he is responsible for them because they are responsible for him as well. Because if somebody else will break a leg, the man who today lies in bed, tomorrow he will come, when he is cured, to take this man's children to school if needed. Okay? This is how it works. And this is, actually, I would say that the family or the extended family or the culture of the extended family is the cornerstone of societies all over the Middle East. Just compare it to the culture here in this country, totally different. totally different kind of societies. As a result, and there's much more to say about the tribal culture. At Bar Ilan, we have a whole year which we talk about this thing, discuss these things. As a result of this culture, a state of Iraq, the modern state of Iraq, actually looks like this. This is the map of the tribes of Iraq. Modern Iraq, today's Iraq. This is the society of Iraq, divided as it is to 70-something tribes. And the names of the tribes are here on the left side of the map. And you can see that these tribes have borders between them. Means they do not move. They are not nomads. They live on the same place for hundreds and some thousands of years already. Why don't they move in the desert? Because they get water. Here is the Euphrates, a river. This here is the Tigris. Here in the 19th they unite and go down to the Persian Gulf under a different name, Shat al-Arab, which is the unification of the Euphrates and the Tigris, the Prat and Hidekel in Hebrew, or Dijla in Arabic, Furat and Dijla. And between them, between the two rivers, there are Iraq. And this is the source of the name of the country. Iraq means in Arabic, veins. Means canals of water which equate the level of the water between the Euphrates and the Tigris. Okay? So you can live in that desert, either near the river or near the canal, and make living from agriculture. And I'm talking about thousands of years already, because some of these canals are very ancient, already from the days of the Babylonians, who started this system of canals between the two rivers. As we say in Hebrew, Aram Naharaim, the Naharaim, the two rivers. Mesopotamia. It's Meso means between, Potamia. Potamus in Greek is a river. Hippopotamus is a horse of the river. Okay? So Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, which is very nice. So, and this is Iraq. This is why most of the tribes here live in the eastern part of the map, means eastern Iraq, where the water is. The western part of Iraq is a desert without any river and without any canal, so the population there is very scattered. So this is actually explains this what the makeup of Iraq. However, Iraq is not divided only according to tribal lines, as the map shows. These tribes in the north are Kurdish. There's another ethnic group, the Kurds, who are divided between Iraq, Syria, Turkey, and Iran. These tribes are Kurdish. These tribes in the south are mostly Arabs, but not only, because this and this and this are Turkmens, Turkish, not Kurdish, Turkish, a different Turks, who went down south like almost 200 years ago, and they settled there, and nobody marries them, because one of the most basic rules of tribalism is that you marry your daughter within the tribe, because you won't give your daughter to another tribe, because the other tribe, by definition, is the enemy. Because once they try to do something to us, this is why marriages within the tribe is well known in the Middle East, and the price is tremendous of genetic problems which are preserved in most of the tribes. Most of the problems are not so problematic, but there are some problems which are devastating. In Israel, we have one tribe in the south, the El Sayed tribe, where I think like 1 of 6 of the people are deaf. Another tribe in the north, 1 of 8 of the people are blind, either partially or totally, because they have some genetic problem in one of the nerves, which are in charge of seeing. So, and since they marry within the tribe, so it occurs that both sides, father and mother, have the same problematic gene, so the genetic problems are preserved. This is what happens in the societies, unfortunately. By the way, in Saudi Arabia, there are areas where a couple cannot get married unless they get a permit from the Ministry of Health, which checks both in order to make sure that they do not carry the same problematic genes. To that degree, the problems were in Saudi Arabia in some areas. And the Saudis tried to address this problem by not allowing couples to get married if both sides carry the same problematic gene. So this is, nobody marries with Turks, so they remain with their culture, speaking Turkish, at least at home. These tribes are Persians. And again, nobody marries with them because they are not Arabs. So we have in Iraq altogether 4 ethnic groups: Kurds, Arabs, Turks, and Persians, divided to 70-something tribes. Okay? Now, this is not the only division in the Iraqi population. There are some 10 religions only in Iraq. 10 religions. There are Muslims, there are Christians. Well, most of them ran away, but traditionally there were Christians over there. There were Jews until almost everybody ran away, to Israel mainly. There are Sabais and Mandays and Yazidis, those who recently are being slaughtered. The men are slaughtered and the women are taken to slavery. There are Shubaks and Zoroastrians and others. And some of these religions are divided to sects. The Muslims are divided between Sunnah and Shia and Salafis and Sufis and all kinds of others. The Christians, when they were still there, were like 6 denominations: Assyriacs, Chaldeans, and others. And the Shubaks also are divided to some sects. Okay, so the Iraqi population, although they are all citizens of the same state, they are sharply divided on ethnic issues, like on ethnic axis, like Arabs, Kurds, Turkmens, and Persians; tribal axis, which is this; religious axis, Muslims, Christians, so forth; and sectarian axis, Sunnah, Shia, and denominations, and so forth. Okay? Now, when the British Empire defined Iraq, or marked the borders of Iraq, almost 100 years ago, they hoped that with the time, thanks to the one flag and the one national anthem and the one government and one passport and one identity card and one Ministry of Education and one army and one police and one ministry of whatever you like, everybody, or all these groups will abandon their traditional loyalties to the tribe, to the ethnic group, to the religious group, and the sectarian group. They will all define themselves as Iraqis, thanks to the papers of Iraq, which everybody holds. And they will all sit around one fire and sing Kumbaya together in one Iraqi dialect. This was the hope of the British. Where is the problem? It didn't happen. Kurds remain loyal to their Kurdish tradition or identity. Arabs remained loyal to their Arab culture. Turks remain Turkish and Persians remain Persians. Muslims remain Muslims. Christians remain Christians. Jews remain Jews, and Yazidis remain Yazidis. Tribes continue not to get married with each other because they keep the identity of the tribe. By the way, they don't have the same language because every tribe has its own dialect. And the whole hope of Britain that one day will be a nation named Iraqi nation, united, consolidated, with one awareness, actually failed. It didn't work. Why? Because they live by themselves, separate from each other. And the main issue is that they do not get married to each other. Because only the marriage is something which after generation, 2 or 3 or 4 generations, when groups get married with each other, only then you can create a new identity, something which is, I would say, a milkshake of everybody, only by marriage. Slogans of togetherness do not work. A school system doesn't work. Nothing works. Only marriage is the only way how to merge communities and how to create a nation out of groups by melting them into each other by a melting pot like in this country. Here it happens because everyone who came to this country from Asia, from Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, from South America, from Africa, or wherever they came as individuals who came to be Americans. After a generation, or 2, or 3 generations, or 4 generations, the kids are marrying each other, regardless almost of wherever the grandfather or great-grandfather came from. Okay, it's not complete. It's not 100%. It's not 100%. But definitely the American melting pot works mainly because people came as individuals in order to become Americans and to share together the American dream. So their children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren marry each other. In Middle East, people do not immigrate as individuals. They live as groups until this very day. And the whole melting pot, which occurs here and works here rather well, in the Middle East doesn't exist. And this is why Iraq, although it's almost 100 years as a state, tribes are still separate from each other, live separate from each other, because they do not get married with each other. And when there is no marriage, there is nothing which can merge groups together and turn them into one group which will define itself as something else like Iraqi. This is why there is no Iraqi nation. This is why violence between groups still occurs. Why? Because one of the tribal rules is that you cannot allow yourself to be the second to shoot. Because if you are the second, you don't shoot anymore. Why? Because you are dead already. Okay? This is why violence in the Middle East, in many cases, is the first tool to use in every dispute, in every struggle, because you cannot allow yourself to be nice, peaceful, because if the other side will be violent, you lost. You lost your life before you lost your case. So this is why you cannot possibly be non-violent in order to survive in such a... So this is why violence is preserved as part of the culture, because the feuds and the struggles remain because there are no nations to solve the problem. So the fact that they remain groups as they were for hundreds and thousands of years with the violence actually explains this whole issue. But it's not restricted to Iraq. If you go to other parts of the Middle East, let's say to Yemen, another atrocity. This is the map of the tribes of Yemen. See how many of them? Here the reason is not the rivers and here the reason is topography. Let me take you to a little tour in Yemen. Fasten your seatbelts. This is a tribe which lives on the top of a mountain. Another one. This is one tribe. Another one is here on the other mountain, beyond the valley. Another one is here on this mountain, you can see. Here you see one tribe and another one on the top of the other mountain. Here is one. And this is another one. And this actually gives us some explanations. They live on the top of the mountain for two reasons. One is the rains, which there are in Yemen, actually leave the top of the mountain exposed without any ground. The rocks are exposed, so you cannot grow them anything because of the rocks. So you build the buildings there, and you don't lose agricultural area because there is no sand and no earth, no soil on the top of the mountain. And if you build your buildings up there, you are protected for security because it's easier to defend yourself when you are up there. If somebody tries to come up to you to hurt you, to harm you, you can roll rocks. And tactically, it's better to be higher than lower. So, and here they build in Hebrew it's terraces, in order to preserve the soil, and this is where they cultivate they grow everything which they eat, and from the valley they bring water. So this is how it works. They live up on the hill or the mountain, and the slopes are actually the source of living in these cases. And this is how it works for thousands of years already. And sometimes they build the buildings as a continuation of the natural wall which they have because of the mountain. Here also, this as well. And here it's very nice, very nicely. So you have a very tall wall to protect you because they use the natural landscape, of course. Okay, so this is Yemen. This explains the map of Yemen according to the mountains. The topography explains it. Another tribal. By the way, again, since there are this, I definitely say there is no Yemenite nation. There are Yemenite citizens, but not one nation because they don't marry each other. Okay? Citizens, yes. Nation, no. Unlike here. Okay? Another atrocity in the Middle East is Libya. Let me show you how part of Libya looks. This is a map of like 10% of Libya. 10%. This is Tripoli. Here you don't see Benghazi in the west. And this is the part of what we call Tripolitania, the area of Tripoli. All these names are the names of the tribes which are wandering in the space. They don't have borders because they are nomads. They wander from place to place. Once they finish the water which they might have found in the well, they have to go to another place to dig. And if they find water, they will be there for a while until they exhaust all the water and they go to another place. Tribes in Libya are much smaller than in Iraq, because in Iraq they get the water constantly from the Euphrates, from the Tigris, and from the canals. Here they don't have not this and not that, and here they have to dig for water. So the tribes in Libya divide after 2 or 3 generations, because once you find something, if you bring 1,000 people, they will exhaust it in 2 days. If you bring 200 people, they can live there for, let's say, 2 weeks. So you have to keep the tribe small, and they divide much earlier than in other places. Now, there is another rule in the tribal thought, that the smaller you are, the more vicious you have to be. Why? To deter your enemies, or those who want to take your water. Okay? So because big tribe has big army, a big militia, because the people are fighting for it. So they don't worry. But if you are a small tribe, you are attractive, or your source of water is too attractive for others who might be bigger than you. So you have to be very vicious. one of the small tribes of Libya is the tribe of Gaddafi. Gaddafi, as you know, he ruled there for 42 years. And Gaddafi is actually the adjective of the name, like Floridian. Okay? It's the adjective of the name of the tribe. What's the name of the tribe? Kadhaf ad-Dam. Now, it means in Arabic, the one who sheds blood. Not his own. The others. Okay? And according to all the stories in Libya, this tribe got his name for a reason. Okay? And I'll spare you the description of how Gaddafi was treating his opponents. You won't sleep at night. Okay? So, this is implementation of the idea that the smaller you are, and his tribe was very small, the smaller you are, the more vicious, the more cruel you have to be when you treat your enemies. Otherwise, you cannot project power, or you cannot project deterrence vis-a-vis the others. Another idea of tribalism. So this is actually how many countries in the modern states in the Middle East look. Like Syria is more or less the same, because Syria also has tribes and ethnic groups like Turkmens, Arabs, Armenians are in Syria. Religions in Syria, there are Muslims and Christians and Alawis and Druze. And the Alawis who control the country are not even Muslims. They are the very weird religion, and they are viewed by Muslims as idol worshippers. So nobody wants them. They have actually no legitimacy. So what we got in these modern states, which were created by Britain, by France, or by Libya when it comes by Italy, which comes to Libya, is that the state is illegitimate because it was created by the colonialists. The regime is illegitimate because it's always one group which took over the whole country by force, not by elections. And the whole thing is viewed as illegitimate by most of the people in the area. The only people who see these countries as legitimate are those who control the others, like the tribe of Saddam Hussein, the Alawis of Assad, and so forth. So this is actually the main problem in these countries, and this which explains why these countries are failing states. Because they have to fight their own citizens who do not want the state, who do not want the frame, and do not want the ruler, because nothing there is legitimate. However, there are some countries, some states in the Middle East which are normal states, rich, I would even say, and peaceful. And I talk about the Gulf Emirates. Altogether 9. Kuwait, Qatar, and 7 Emirates united in the United Arab Emirates. Now, why do I count them 7? Because they are united not like New York, Florida, California, and Oklahoma. They are united like Germany, France, Belgium, and Spain. Okay? What does it mean? Every one of them is separate, independent, and sovereign, like Germany, France, Holland, and Belgium. Here, Florida is not sovereign, because sovereignty here belongs to the Union. Okay? Florida has its own freedom or autonomy in some cases. Florida doesn't have an army. Florida doesn't run foreign policy. And Florida is part of the economy of the United States, because these things are federal.